educator, so we used to do this thing when I was in the classroom for 17 years. Let's count to 3. 1, 2, 3. That means you're listening. We're going to ask you to be seated, please, if you may. And we're going to do a moment of devotion. Did I say that correctly? Yes. My friends know who I'm talking to. Bow your heads, please, in a moment of silence. Dear Creator, today we celebrate your goodness and strength and the thrilling life of purpose we enjoy when we follow you. Today, we are thankful for the Tuesday Morning Forum. We are thankful for our founder. We are thankful for the family of followers and participants. We're thankful for the weather today that only you can predict and execute. Bless us during this session. We're happy to see youngsters. Bless this mayoral session and may it be an inspiration to youngsters. And for the adults, may they be informed as well as inspired to be better citizens in their communities, in our city, in our county, in our state, in these our troubled United States. And let's make this a better world. Let's say together, amen. Amen.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Johnson, and I will be facilitating this morning for Ms. Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Okay. Do we have any first-timers here? If you are here for the first time, do you mind standing and just saying your name? All the mayoral candidates at the front, please. Okay, good morning. I'm going to say good morning again because I hear a lot of chit-chat. Thank you. We're going to introduce our visitors, our new members, I should say.
Good morning, Braxton B. Coach.
Good morning, Catherine Kennedy, Precinct Chair and African American Caucus Treasurer.
Okay, well, I'd like to go.
I'm Renee Jones, and this is JTV. We are the Ambassadors of God, and we are in the youth ministries and organizations throughout for 7 years.
Thank you, welcome, and come back. Today we have our mayoral candidates with us today. They all seated up front, and they should be. Okay, for our first timers, I will say that I'll go through the process with you. We're going to give each one no more than 3 minutes for your presentation, and then we will open it up for questions. I will call on you in the order that you raise your hand. After you have asked one question, I will put you at the end for another question, but I will get those who have first-time questions first. Okay, so if you ask a question and you have another one, then I will have to allow those who have not asked the question yet to ask their question, and then I will get you. Okay? So without, and then we also have Nathalie. Nathalie is our timekeeper. And so you just, pay attention over here. Thank you, Nathalie. Okay, so we're going to begin, and we're going to start with Ms. Lucille Plunkett. We have Mr. Joel Odom, and then we have Mayor Val.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Lucille Plunkett, and I'm your candidate for mayor. I want to start by saying, I may not have all the answers, but I am black. I support everyone, but I am black. I will represent everyone, but again, I am black. Not all your issues are my issues, because I am black. And I want to start by saying, tell you a little bit about me. I'm a native of Detroit, Michigan. I've been here 15 years. I have 8 children. I have 13 grandchildren. I have an associate's degree in human services. I have a bachelor's degree in social work. I have a master's degree in business administration. I have been on the ground for a long time. A lot of you may know of the organization called ACORN. I was the chair of the local chapter of ACORN. I have been a resident advisory council for the Housing Authority. I've sat on the board of commissions for the Housing Authority. I'm a precinct chair in Precinct 81. I have my own nonprofit called Project Pats Today, preparing at-risk communities for tomorrow's struggles today. I served as the chair of National Action Network Crisis Director. I also served as the chair of the Political Action Group of the NAACP. Been out here on the ground again, like I said, for a long time. A few of the issues that is close to me. We have to break the cycle. We are in a real tough cycle right now. And in breaking that cycle, and we'll go into this a little bit more as you all ask questions or things, but breaking the cycle is community and public safety. We had over 65 homicides today. And as some of you may know in here, I lost my son in 2016 to homicide. And the pain never stops. But we have to do something to address that issue. And looking at addressing that issue, we have to look at our youth. Our youth are getting younger and younger and committing crimes every day. We used to say 18 and above. Now we're looking at people 13, 14, 15, 16, etc. committing crimes. When I was 14 years old, I was not thinking about being out here committing sexual assaults and things like that. But as we look around today, that's what our young people are doing. So we really need to address our young people today. As adults, sometimes we need to be silent and listen to our young people because they're crying for help, they're crying for hope, they're crying for attention. And we need to bring them to the table and we need to listen to them. We need to look at community preservation. When I was growing up, the community, it took a village to raise us. You know, if we was out in the community, you knew better than to misbehave. Because, you know, you go up the street, somebody's watching. You might get your behind whipped up the street, but by the time you get home, you better know you're going to get your behind whipped again. So we need to look at that. And that brings us to gentrification. She said time. Okay, thank you. But again, my name is Lucille Bucky. Thank you.
Okay, before you begin, I do want to say that Tigress McDaniel is also running for mayor, and she is running a few minutes late. She did let us know that. Thanks.
Good morning, Belmont family. I am happy to be here with you and share this special moment with all of you. My name is Joel Odom. I am a born Charlottean. My family's been in the Charlotte community for over 130 years. We helped founded St. Paul and McDowell Street, South McDowell Street, 115 years ago. Also the United House of Prayer, the Mother House that is on Baby Ford. We helped with the Excelsior Club. Not only that, we helped with the new Johnson C. Smith Science Building. I serve on the board of the historic Washington Heights community. And then I also serve on the board for Generation Nation. I'm an Eagle Scout, CMPD Explorer. I'm an alumni of the Youth Legislative Assembly. Also was a Charlotte Metro Youth Council. Also I've traveled with the city and the mayor at the National League of Cities, speaking and representing the city very well, I might add. All right.
And that's true. That is true.
Thank you. And so with all that being said, my high five issues are reunifying the community, affordable housing, reducing crime, support education, expanding opportunities for Charlotte. I'm 20 years old, as all of you may know, and so with that being said, in the last 6 months, 5 of my friends were murdered here in the city of Charlotte. The other day, my neighbor from Piedmont Chorus, which was public housing, his son Dominique was murdered in 2017. He was only 17 years old, and so the further I look into living here and the further I go around and I meet so many beautiful faces, I learn the issues, and not only have I learned the issues, I lived the issues here. Public housing. My mother passed away from HIV when I was 8 years old. I helped take care of her until her dying day, which was October the 4th. My birthday is October the 8th. And so I had to deal with that, and at the same time, I took care of 2 of my great-grandparents at 16 years old. Both suffered from Alzheimer's, and so they were 94 and 92. They passed away a month apart from one another. And so with that being said, I love all of you, and I am looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm really glad to be here this morning. I'm really honored to have, what am I doing?
Turn it. So to make sure that the green light is on.
It's on.
It's on. Go ahead.
Closer? Is that better? Okay, thank you. It's always good to get Miss Sarah to tell you exactly what to do, because she's always right. So, good morning, everyone. I currently serve as mayor of this great city, and I want to talk a little bit about what the last 18 months has been like to serve. I'm actually honored to be able to talk in this way and from this perspective. So when I came to you the last election, and I said that we would do something around housing, we would do something around jobs, and we'd have to do something around transportation. And I want to say to you that we have accomplished a great deal, especially in housing and especially in jobs. The thing that I want to focus on in my next term is transportation. So why? I've always said that if you work in this city, you ought to be able to live in this city. So let's talk about housing. When I came on board, the housing budget for the city of Charlotte was $15 million. All we did were tax credit deals for twice a year. This year alone, in the first tax credit cycle, we've approved 9 projects with over 950 affordable units, and particularly 20% of those being affordable under 30% of median income. To me, I would say that we've done a great job. So first, I want to say thank you for supporting the bonds, the affordable bonds. Without that, we would have never had the courage to go forward and say to the leadership in this community that earns the private sector, I would have to go in and say to them, we need an additional match for that $50 million, and they gave it. We're up to $44 million with the idea that by this September, we would have a total of $100 million to invest in affordable housing. The second thing that I'd like to address is jobs. Now, many of you have read about the jobs that Honeywell is going to do. You've read about the jobs that Lowe's are going to do. And you look at that and you say, that's great. I think that's really wonderful. But what we have to look at going further are the pathways that we need to encourage the young people in this community to take on, ways to get jobs that are going to be the jobs of the future. The council met in January of this year and got a whole report from this very esteemed professor, which many of us probably knew already what he was going to say, but just to have that affirmation that jobs are changing and we need to do the jobs or have our kids be prepared for the jobs of the future. So we talk about the apprenticeship programs and beginning to work with pathways in our middle school and our high schools so that people know what careers are out there. I was over at Camp North End one evening, and Lowe's was over there, and there was a young woman, and she was laying some towel. And I said, what are you going to do? She says, I want to be a psychologist. And I said to her, you know, you could make more laying this towel. You could start your own business laying this towel instead of becoming a psychologist. And we have to get that message out. And I appreciate what we are doing, and thank you so much for having me. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. Tommy? He's coming up. And Winston.
Good morning, glad to have you here. My primary concern is that every department in Charlotte is headed by a black person. I don't see that many changes in the departments. Just like we got a chief of policemen, so we want more black policemen. The first thing is put in front of us is that the chief of police is black. You know, so when will we start seeing some changes from some of the people we elected?
He said, when will we see the changes?
Okay, when will we see the changes? That is a great question, and I do understand your concern. Majority of our leaders here are black. And so what you see is a good deal of tokenism, because most of the leaders here do not have all the money. But the people that represent the city are black. You have the superintendent, city manager, fire chief, police chief, the sheriff, city council, county, county commission, school board, except the mayor, etc., and all the mayor candidates for the most part. And so with that being said, that means you have to get up, get active, and get involved. And so if you want to see the change in the community, you have to be that change. And so that's why I'm sitting up here, being that change. And so I hear so many people talk about violent crime and how young people are being, how young people are going out committing sexual assaults and rapes and also the murder and violent crime. Well, my pants are not sagging. I'm sitting up here in front of all of you making a statement out here, saying we need the help. We need help, and someone has to be a representative of all of the people and help bridge that gap. Charlotte's great on the main end of corporate. We have the money part, and like the mayor said, public transportation is very important, but at the same time, you have to be able to afford your home tax, your property taxes. And so a great deal of homeowners here in this great city, their taxes are going up every month, $100. And a lot of the members here in the city, they live on a fixed income. From 80 years and up, most of the African American residents were housekeepers at one point. So they don't have a pension, they're living on Social Security. So that's the answer to your question, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Ms. Tigress McDaniel. She's also a candidate for mayor. She has now arrived. Okay, and I'm going to stop and give her 2 minutes to speak, and then we'll continue with the questions.
All right. How are y'all doing this morning? Wonderful. I was behind a car accident. Some of you know I sent that information to you all. Otherwise, you know I'm very punctual. But I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, your best candidate for mayor. And I have both a science degree and an economics degree that I believe will lend very well to the scope of work that is necessary for Charlotte to actually transform. We keep talking about change, and you keep electing individuals who will recite those mantras and those incantations of change, but then you have absolutely no change. My entire track record, my entire career has been based upon viable, measurable, and actual change. I am also people too. That's something that I mentioned to a lot of you all as I have met you over the last 4 years that I have lived in Charlotte. Some have misunderstood that statement, so I will re-explain it. When I say that I'm people too, it means that not only am I, because when I say that I'm the best candidate or your best candidate, I see the looks on your faces, and some of you think that that is rooted in arrogance. It is not. If I'm efficient, it is okay for me to say that I'm efficient, okay? And when I say that I'm people too, it lets you know that not only am I a high level, long trip. I come from almost Fort Mill, just so you know. Some of you know where I live. And when I tell you that I'm people too, it means that I have gone through and still experience the exact same things that everyday people do. I am not disconnected at all. The only thing I'm disconnected from is the status quo. Thank you so much.
Okay, did they, okay.
Good morning. My name is Billie Jean Shaw from NBC Charlotte.
Come up front, please.
Hi, good morning. My question is regarding the recent hateful rhetoric that's been in the news over the past couple of months. And you know, in light of the mass shootings, some of the early reports are showing that these suspects are supporters of people in the Republican Party. So my question is about safety, and with the RNC coming to Charlotte, what would
the response from you guys.
Well, first I wanted to have the opportunity to answer the question that was presented before she was introduced herself. He was saying about all Black leaderships, when will we really start seeing a change in the Black community? That change will start, I would say, August the 21st, when early voting starts, when you all start going out to the polls and voting for Lucille Pluckett. As I said in my introduction, I am Black. And to understand, first you have to have someone to understand really what it's like to be Black and not afraid to stand up and be who you are in your own skin. And that will be me. Because being out here on the ground, as I said, for a long time, I'm out here in the community. And a lot of the issues that faces the Black community, I face those issues. So in addressing my issues, we'll be addressing the issues of the Black community. We have to learn how to be in the community and also stand up for the community and not be afraid. We cannot be controlled and led by money and by the dollars. We have to do what's right.
And what was that question? So to have some clarity. If someone would give me that question, please. Or did you want me to address it?
Yeah, just go ahead and address the recent question.
Okay.
About the balance.
And how to address the RNC's presence, is that correct? Okay, well, we all know that as mayor, that individual is intended to be a direct representation of the city's will. Right now, you see that that is not actually the case, and that is unfortunate because you have an indication of ambiguity. You're not secure in your understanding on the position of bylaws. As it relates to the Republican Party, for individuals like myself, and I concur that Ms. Puckett is equally committed to the charge, we actually believe very strongly against any type of divisiveness. You all know, and you have seen me, some of you, probably about 50% of this room, has seen me actually call out racism amongst even our city officials at forums in real time. I don't wait. I stood up for Matt Newton the other day at the Black Political Caucus at one of the tables. I have admonished Velma Leaks for her behavior. And it goes both ways. From black to white, quote unquote, and from white to black. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. I've stood up against it. And I will continue to stand against any type of divisiveness. Because you see, as a scientist, I can guarantee you that we're all the same. Thank you.
And then to answer that question, the RNC, I understand the economical benefits that it will bring, but the detriment that it will also bring to our city, I would have said no to the RNC. We knew before going after the RNC what our current leader was about. Studies was out there that 266% wherever he been, crimes increase, racial violence increase. So as leaders in our city, we should have took a stand and said it's not worth the lives and the detriment that it was going to bring to our city. When we look at the safety, I don't know how we're going to be able to control that. Because if evil is within, evil is coming out. As we can see in the Texas and the Ohio shooting just over the last 48 hours, less than a minute how many lives were taken. So even with all the national security, CMPD, the FBI here, less than a second, how many lives can be lost when the RNC comes to Charlotte? We should be looking at a safe Charlotte. And the decision to bring the RNC here was not the proper decision. And the only thing that I can think of is being mayor in 2020 or being elected mayor in 1919. We have to stand for something or we'll fall for anything. I understand our attorney says that we probably will be sued and we will have to be taken to court, but we have been sued before. We have to fight to rescind that RNC. That will be my only option for a safe Charlotte.
So let me go ahead and address the RNC right off the top, because all of you know that I've come here and spoken about that before. You know, you get elected and you have a number of people that vote for you. But once you sit in that chair, you have to remember you represent every person in this city. It's a real difference from campaigning to governance. And having the RNC here is one of those things that, yes, we knew what kind of president we had. You've seen my statement where I've said we will not stand for xenophobic and racist statements. You've seen the City Council adopt a resolution about that. But all in all, the RNC is going to bring 70,000 people to about 5 blocks of the city. They're going to go into our Spectrum Arena. They're going to have a meeting for 3 days and they're going to leave. This is our city. We define what we are about. And so if we are allowing people within 3 days to come in and change our value system, you're right, we would have fallen for it, Ms. Pelkett. But what I depend on are the voices in this room to speak up and speak out, like your elected officials have already done, against this kind of racist behavior, and to show that Charlotte is not the city where we will tolerate racism and xenophobia. Those are our values. Now, I expect the security for this convention to be very, very different. I can't say why, but I expect it to be very, very different. I worked for the Democratic Party when we had the 2012 convention, and many people forget that that was when the time that people were protesting on Wall Street. And we had marches through the city. We had protests going on. Now, I know that security, and I want to say one other thing. Chief Putney is not a token. This man has worked 30 years in our department. And that is not tokenism. That is ability and skill and knowledge and all of that. So let's be careful how we throw these words around. Just let us think. We're talking about real people here, not tokens. People that have earned the ability and the right to serve in the city. Their credentials are longer than anything I could ever have. So thank you for those questions.
Okay, no, we're not doing rebuttals. You can speak.
All right. To get to the RNC question, there are 3 things the mayor must consider before anything and all things before inviting any organization, convention, or major event here. The safety of its citizens, the safety of infrastructure, and sustainability of infrastructure, and growth and economic development of the city. The RNC hits on growth and economic mobility for the city of Charlotte, bringing over $200 million to this great city. That is true. But as Ms. Puckett said, with the RNC, it also data proves that it brings a height of hate crime to 226%. A 226% rise in hate crime. Ford is less than, I think, 2 miles away to uptown Charlotte. And as the mayor stated, these individuals will be here for 3 days. And President Trump will probably only be here for a day. And then he'll fly off on his plane, and we'll be left to clean up the mess. And so everyone here lived here, I think, during the Keith Lamont Scott shooting. We saw how the city was prepared for that. And so with that being said, we also have to think about preparation now and how important it is, because with the shooting at the Burger King, we know that a couple, or I'm not going to say majority, but there are fractions of CMPD Police Department who do not have de-escalation training. At the same point, we have to make sure that people have body cameras. I don't know how we will be able to do that with over I think, the FBI, the Secret Service, National Guard, and all of the different agencies here. And the last time I checked, the President of the United States was racist, xenophobic, and homophobic way before the RNC of 2020. And so I think it's a little too late to say, well, we want to give a resolution. We should have put people first and not money. And so if we look at our campaign finances, mine and everyone is up here, we see who the Republican Party is given to and who's being represented for the people and who's representing the people of this great city. And that's not people, the Democratic Party, and that's not the youth, and that's not the seniors in this great city. Thank you.
Good morning. I was recently able to have the opportunity to see a covenant from the Myers Park neighborhood, which specifically said black people can't live here, basically. And housing is really important to me. And these covenants were as recent as the 60s. And people were injured from that, specifically black people, which has largely contributed to the 20-to-1 wealth gap we are enduring right now. So I wanted to know if you had a specific agenda, or what would you do to close that gap that was created that disenfranchised a very specific group of people out of the housing and ownership process? How can we bring that to amends for this very specific group of people, black people, to close that gap and create equity for all?
We're going to keep our responses to no more than 2 minutes, okay?
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware. Thank you. Okay. You all know I'm happy-go-lucky, so they say I'm next, so I'm next. It's okay. All right. Well, this is an issue that is near and dear to my core. Some of you know that my father battled homelessness and drug addiction after his service in the military. And there were issues in Greensboro, North Carolina, and in Charlotte that I had fought for as it relates directly to those stamps of black that go on from different sectors of our commercial landlord aspects. What I'm referring to specifically is that we have the option, and I know some of you are not, let's say you're not excited to hear about my disposition in litigation. Some of you have read articles that give you the impression that I am a frivolous filer. Ironically enough, you should pay attention to the scope of efficacy that is suggested when they would even take a tax against me for my litigation history. What I'm referring to is that we have that option as a city to litigate, to sue those individuals that would come to our city, have those commercial properties, and then discriminate, okay? We can also go through the USDA, we can go through our federal housing agencies as well to ensure that they are complying, and fully so, with federal guidelines. All of these are viable options that I can very easily assert because I assert them now as a layperson. As a regular resident, I am constantly at the small claims court. Some of you have seen me, some of you are familiar with it, and I stand in the gap. Even where I do not have a license to practice law, I show up and I assert myself and make myself available for those tenants who are going up against landlords like that are the larger landlords like what you're speaking of, and even some of the smaller ones that have that assertion that is too close to a discriminatory tone.
All right, I think the question was about a law that was in place to make sure property was not sold to African Americans in the Myers Park community. So that is more of a policy problem, and with that being said, what we have to do is go to the HOA. If there's a homeowners association in that specific community, at the same time, work with the city council to try to resolve whatever ordinance that was put in place. So we'll have to amend that. And so
I had that same mortgage, Winston. It said no black people, no Jewish people, people of Jewish descent would be able to buy the first house that I got in Charlotte, which was on Greenway Avenue in Elizabeth. Those laws have now been reviewed and found to be discriminatory, and our deeds are just not accurate. But the law is already there that says that no one can do that. But let's go back to why it got started. There was an agreement between the northern senators and the southern senators that then when people came home from the GI Bill, that they would redline neighborhoods and not lend money to people that were black, at all. And so what happens is that we're still living the vestiges of that racism and that statement, that agreement that was made by the North and the South. So what do we need to do about it? One, we need to continue to look at home ownership options. I'm glad to say that our city budget this year includes the city actually developing single-family homes for sale. We're not just doing rentals, we're doing single-family homes for sale. We're encouraging people to come out and learn how to get a mortgage. There are 2 organizations that will do that for you in a day. They'll tell you if you qualify in a day for a mortgage, and if you can't that day, they will tell you what to do next. The city provides over $30,000 for down payment assistance, particularly for public servants, police officers, firefighters, teachers, those of us that really want to have our communities integrated, not just by the wealthy. Now, I'd never want to live in Myers Park. That's just my thing. I would never want to live where people's houses were so far apart. But what we have to look at is maintaining the housing that we know in our neighborhoods are essential to developing a middle class for us. We need home ownership, and we are increasing the number of home ownership opportunities that we will have. The second thing that we're going to do is continue to push out how do you get a job that allows you to make enough money to afford a house. The city did a review of all of our jobs and said where in our pipeline are people not going. And we are going to create jobs with health care and adequate wages so people can afford a place to live.
Sarah, did everyone have a chance to respond? Okay. Sarah.
I want to thank you all for coming again. Someone said that nothing had happened. I beg to disagree with you. A lot has happened. I am 93 years old, and so much has happened, you wouldn't know about it because you weren't even born then. Not many of you in here. But thanks be God, we can still work on these issues because they're going to be with us as long, as we live. So we have to keep on pressing on. We have to put God first though. And if we put Him first, then He'll help us accomplish all the rest of the stuff. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. My question is, this recent El Paso shooting, is anyone on the panel familiar with what number 45 did with the flag?
He didn't go right past that.
Half-staff on the 8th and 8th?
Yes, you know, I'm a former Federal Ranger. He didn't do it in the proper way. He has not done it to make sure that it's displayed across the entire nation. I'm sorry.
But did you know what that meant, the 8-8? It's a reflection of
The 8-10 and the 8 and the...
white supremacy.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No problem. It was my question, and I just want to reflect on it to see if anybody knew what it meant. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and begin with that. And I really don't need this mic. You let me know. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember when he told me last year. Absolutely. Okay, so oftentimes, when you hear me say things, if you're not familiar with them, then it may seem like it is not an answer to the question. So I want to re-establish that what I stated in answering the gentleman's question over here, as it relates to the USDA and the federal agencies, that is the best way for us to pull from their resources, which are readily available to us, and advocate against any type of discriminatory housing practices, albeit albeit apartment living, home ownership. All of them are all-inclusive. You can Google the USDA for that purpose, and you should know, as I've mentioned before, that I am I'm a true Aggie. So that means that a true Aggie has agricultural background, and that's why I would have that firsthand knowledge. Also, as it relates directly to my experience with the National Park Service, which is also a federal agency. As it relates to the gentleman's question, I guess it's pretty clear. As a former federal ranger at 2 border parks, Shenandoah National Park and Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument, I am familiar with these.
Answer the question.
Yes, I am, because I'm answering the question, but I need you to understand where the efficacy is coming from, so that you can apply that, because you need individuals in place who actually have working knowledge and applicable skills. And you have too often individuals who are just giving you pretty words. You need to get work done. So this is a direct answer to the question. If someone is not familiar with hate messages and hate symbols, that is a concern for someone that you intend to represent you. Of course, for me, that is something I know.
Good morning. Everybody knows what's dear to my heart, and it is affordable housing, and it is about Lake Arbor. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what's going on with Lake Arbor. And so we're going to have a lot of people displaced. And we always talk about affordable housing. So how can you help us? And we've been beating this bush for a whole year, and we have not got the support and help that we need. And we're still beating that bush. So as mayor, if you would be chosen as the mayor or the mayor who we have today, how can you do a better job in helping us with these people that need this help ASAP?
Lake Harbor is, for those who don't know, is a complex that houses individuals that are below the poverty line in the city of Charlotte. And one of the things that I plan to do is work with individuals in the community, advocates for the community, and also work with the city council and the county commission to put in place policies and ordinances that will help those citizens in placement and also sustaining their home and their property development so they have clean air to breathe and drinking water. Those are some deplorable ordinances and policies that are not in place to protect the children who live over in those communities. As some of you don't know, the Mecklenburg County Health Inspector is not forced to disclose if there is black mold in these apartments. And so a lot of children are suffering with asthma. At the same point, they are suffering from, let's say, mental health, with breathing in toxins in those communities. And so we have to go out there in the community, speak with those children and those adults, and work with the advocates. And so those are some of the things that I plan to do to work with Ms. Blanche Penn, who is an advocate for Lake Harbor, and she speaks about it every week. And so that is something that is near and dear to me. Thank you.
Lake Arbor is far worse than a lot of you here may even know. They're displacing 177 families. Some have 30 days to move out. The rest have to be out by the end of December with no real place to go. Our city leaders was not really proactive in this situation. It was not created overnight. Those residents kept crying out. Rat infestation, roach infestation, no air conditioner in the summertime, no heat in the wintertime, really deplorable conditions. And going to our current leaders and previous leaders, and they turned a deaf ear. It wasn't until Blash Penn, myself, being on the ground, David on the news, really brought this situation to light. And then our city officials still did not take an active role in what was done. The role that they did take was to send code enforcement out to increase the risk, to increase the detriment of those residents of that Lake Arbor being shut down. So it was really to work against the residents, and they knew by sending code enforcement in like that, and then not having an active plan where those 177 families are going to go. So when we talk about the 950 units that's coming on the ground in 2 years or more, what about the 177 families that's being displaced as of now? And when we talk about 950 units, only 217 of those units, is 30%. So if you look at 217 units, 30%, and then you take just those 177 units away from that, you're only doing 40 units in 2 years. What about what our people need now? So we need to be a little bit more proactive with what's going on around our city. Okay, time.
I want to say that a lot of what Ms. Puckett has said and what Ms. Penn has said is really true. It is a situation where we are in Charlotte that we have apartment complexes owned by the private sector that are out-of-state landlords that aren't aware of what's going on in their own units. And so by the time that we got to this place, we were in a situation where we were doing code enforcement. That's always a very difficult balance. If we don't send in code enforcement, do people live in horrible, deplorable conditions? If we send in code enforcement and they start doing the repairs, then people are displaced. It is a very difficult, and it's not going to be our last one. So I think the lessons learned from Lake Arbor are going to be very important. Towards the end of this, and this is the difference, when you're, as I say, when you're mayor, you have the ability to pick up the phone and call some people. And about a week ago, I did that to say what's going to happen with us if we continue to do what Lake Arbor has done. And I want you to know the response was, this is done. There was never going to be the opportunity to negotiate with the private owner. So yes, this is something we have to figure out. It's going back, it's a new way of looking at equity in home ownership and equity in rental properties. So my week this week includes a calendar where I'm meeting with the Realtors Association to say to them, we're going to have reentry coming here in the next year as our federal facilities change. We've got existing units that we think need to be renovated right now. What are you going to do to help us in this situation? We don't have the power as a city, and this is understanding. If I were going to try to fix some of these laws, I'd have to run for the state legislature, which would mandates the minimum housing code, and that's a place we need to go get people to work and work to join that legislature. In Congress, that's where you have to go if you're going to talk about changes in tax law that makes an incentive for property owners. So this is a dilemma that I wish we could solve, but it requires that we work with 2 other governmental agencies and units to get something done. And I will continue to work with them to do that.
You may be wondering what I'm doing, some of you, and I wanted to actually show you. Some of you are directly familiar with the fact that on yesterday evening, I was working to house someone who is battling homelessness, and she's from one of these communities. And this is the chain of the text messages that she's sending me right now for the sake of getting her into another hotel room on tonight for her temporary housing. The reason why I'm showing you this is because this is something I do every day. It is not something that I do during campaigning. I do it all the time, every day, and they will speak to other individuals who are in that situation and have them contact me. And like I said, I also go directly to the small claims court with Magistrate Williams, and I stand in the gap, even where I put myself at risk for being exited out of the building by the sheriffs as it relates to disrupting court services. What I'm also referring to is we have some of our state representatives in this building, okay? And they know full well that in the last election, just like these elected, well, we have one elected official and candidates and some of the other elected officials in this building, they are well familiar with the fact that I have told you several times and I have asked you to please, I've pleaded with you to go to the North Carolina General Statutes. There is an empowerment and it's not even buried in the statute. There is an empowerment by the state directing the city government with that enforcement power to enact mold legislation, and they have yet to do so. I have stated that several times, and you still see that the Board of Commissioners has not taken any action to even start that process. They've already been in power, so they should not be blaming state legislators. The state has empowered them to do so. You need to elect individuals who will.
Hi everybody, my name is Antoine. So kind of piggyback on what Mr. just said, just kind of follow up. So I hear a whole lot about what's prospectively to be done for the city of Charlotte. So a lot of you are candidates that have been here for a long time. A lot of you have already been in office for a while too. So what on ground actions have y'all completed in the meantime? While you see the problems that are going on, while you see the issues, while you hear the community speak, like pretty much screaming out about everything going wrong, what actually have y'all been doing during this entire time? In regards to this whole overall gentrification issue, gentrification specifically, what have you done? What have you guys been doing? Period, other than just coming up, giving speeches, and talking to everybody at community panels.
As I stated in my introduction, I've been out in the trenches for a long time. Even being on the Housing Authority Commission Board, trying to advocate for a young man who was banned from Housing Authority, but that's where his family was. The Housing Authority spent over $100,000 to evict me, but that didn't shut my mouth. I advocate still with residents for the Housing Authority, and before Attorney Rebecca Tien retired, all the families that I was helping fight against for the Housing Authority and was winning their cases, she told me that if she hear my name mentioned in the courthouse again in helping people, she would cite me for practicing law without a license. But that didn't matter to me, because if I can save a family from being evicted and becoming homeless, I feel like that was my job and my duty to do so. Even this year on my birthday, I did a walk on the Bettisford Road corridor where we lost 3 individuals within a mile radius. And that walk was labeled, "Take Back My Hood." And that hood represented helping our own damn selves. Because we have to do it for ourselves. Because our elected officials, even me running to be an elected official, not going to stand up and do what we need to do for ourselves in our community. So in running as an elected official, that's why I'm running, because I want to stand with you all. I want to be the one that's out there in the community that's really truly helping you all, like I have been since I've been here in Charlotte. It's not no stopping whether I'm an elected official or not. But it will be a great benefit for me to help you all in that position.
Well, what I've been doing in the short time in my life, I've been a member at St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church. I serve with the Men of Valor, and with that being said, I also work with Rooms in the Inn. And so I take time out sometimes during the week and also on weekends to help families who are displaced. My cousin works for, I think, Victory Christian's Women's Shelter, and I go over there and we donate. I donate to Runs Elementary Library from our own private library. And so I take the time out to speak to these individuals who are going through displacement. And at school we had a program that gifted Christmas gifts during the Christmas season to people who are suffering and below the poverty line. And so with that also being said, with working with the president of the Historic Washington Heights community area, those people who live in District 2, majority of those individuals live on fixed income, and at the same time, they make under $40,000. And so with that being said, property taxes are going up and a lot of people are being displaced. A lot of elders and seasoned people are moving into these affordable home or affordable complexes where they still have to give up a majority of their Social Security check just to live there. And so, like the mayor said, we do have to work with legislators to fix a lot of these issues, but we also have to work with the county and the city council to create ordinances, to create a sustaining tax plan for people who live in the city, like Ms. Sarah Stevens, for a number of years. And so it hurts my heart to see people displaced and thrown out their homes and have to be forced to live in a retirement community or a assisted living apartment. So we have to be that change and go out here and make a difference in our community.
All right, so I've already told you what I've been doing and what I continue to do. It has been my life's work. Ironically enough, seeing my dad in that situation, who was such an upstanding man, such an impact in the community. In fact, he became almost a popular homeless individual in Greensboro. That was what has kept my thrust in standing in the gap as it relates to those who are displaced or without housing. As it relates to other matters, I have stood in the gap as it relates to CMS parents and advocacy in that regard, advocating for expunction of the students' suspension or punitive records, where a lot of parents are not even familiar that those exist. I've worked directly with parents with regards to disability of their children, 504 plans that most parents are not even aware are available to them. I have stood in the gap as it relates to, of course, environmental pollution and construction here, and kind of inserting myself where I have absolutely no authority to do so, and kind of having the cheerleader personality and kind of suggesting to them, hey, it can be done a better way. I'm happy to lend my support with regards to the science that is not being employed here. I've also lent my support as it relates to the arbor efforts here, and you see they're having great issues with the non-native trees and the pesticide management. I've helped in that regard as well. There's several of the organizations, the nonprofit arbor organizations, who have reached out to me for economic analysis so that they can actually give their grant applications justification. I am this person. It's a real thing for me. It's not an act. The only reason why I'm running for office is because the issue at hand for the things that we need to change is legislation, and I cannot affect legislation without a seat.
So I've been your mayor for 18 months. And when I think about that and what I have to do, I'm in the office probably 5 to 6 days a week, because we do have really tough problems and we have to solve them working with other people. We have to bring other people to the table. So when you say, what have we done? One, we had a taxpayer program for seniors. When the property taxes were going to go up, as soon as we knew that, we appropriated money to help pay senior citizens property taxes. And that program was funded at $750,000, and it will go, it's funded at $500,000, and it goes to $750,000 this year. So we are actually paying people's taxes, city taxes. Now, I can't have a lot of stuff to do with the county. I'm not the health department. I can't do anything about mold. I am the city. I can do something about code enforcement. I can do something about seniors needing money for their taxes. The other thing that I think people need to be aware of is this past year we created a micro-grant program. Many of you, like these young people that I met here today, have an organization and you're out doing things that make a difference in the community. With this program, you can get, without any 501(c)(3), D, E, or F, an amount of money to operate your programs. And then if you continue and do something that you say, I want to grow bigger and better, you can come in, fill out an application, and then you get more. That program has increased in funding as well. So when you talk about the issues around our community, I'm just going to say this. I've said it in this room when we had a meeting right around the last shooting that we had. And there are a number of people in this room that were activists. Many of you in this room came to that meeting. And I'm going to say it again. We've got to raise our children. CMPD cannot raise our children, and the city government cannot raise our children. We can have a mayor's youth program, which we do. Chief Putney has a diversion program, which we do. We pay for our seniors to be able to afford to live in their housing. But at some point, guys, we've got to take some responsibility for ourselves block by block. Now, we're working on this for safety. We're going to come in and we're going to look at what are the attributes that are necessary for people to come out of an environment of crime and violence. And we're going to work on that. That is important to do this year. I wish I could wave that magic wand. If anybody has one of those, let me know. Because I could do some real good if I had it. But what I have is the ability to understand the issue, to understand a $2.6 billion budget, to make it grow where we need to have it grow. For our community, when we've been left out before, call it Crescent, call it city within the city, it doesn't really matter to me. It's always going to be about what do we do to bring people back into our economic vitality for me.
Thank you. Okay, did everyone have a chance to respond to that? Okay.
Well, there is something, I think I had 30 seconds left. When we talk about displacement, we're talking about individuals that come from Piedmont courts, individuals that come from Babies Forward, Nations Forward, and so with that being said, you have to live these issues. I come from Section 8 housing. I've seen displacement firsthand. And so I'm not assuming anything. What we should do, what we need to do, I'm telling you what needs to be done. There are families being put out of their homes, and $500,000 is not enough.
We're not doing rebuttals.
To take care of all the seniors here.
If you don't take your time, that's it. We're not doing rebuttals. Okay. Yeah, all right now. Okay. April, and let me say this because we are running out of time and we have about 8 people left on the list, so it may be impossible to get to everyone on there. I would ask for 1 minute max to answer your question. And you can ask your question in 30 seconds.
My question is, why should, for your new folk that is running for mayor, we kind of trust our mayor, she's done a good job this far. I don't think that's so. What is
no responses to that, please. We're being respectful here. Be respectful.
So you new guys that are running, why should we trust you now with our vote?
Well, this is my first time running for public office, unlike a couple of the candidates sitting up here with me. And so with that being said, I live these issues. Every day I look around, a lot of my friends are being done down in the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina. At the same point, I know what it's like to lose a parent from HIV. At the same point, I live the struggles of dealing with alcoholism, drug addiction, mass incarceration, displacement, Section 8 housing. And so we have to be the change. And so with that being said, everyone's talking about violent crime and how young people, I stand up before you, I go against all the odds. All of the odds. Because at the same point, I'm not supposed to be here. And I'm not supposed to be saying these things because you know what? I'm supposed to be selling drugs or shooting someone. But I'm standing here in front of you, and we have to take the time out to say, and like I have to, do it. And I have to say, thank you, God.
Okay.
Because he is doing great things for me, and I have to say thank you. And no matter what, you can't be solid. Thank you.
Now listen, I am going to, I know that I have said that Natalie is the timekeeper, but I'm going to call time too. And if you go way over, I may subtract that from your next answer. Okay? Yeah, Jeopardy. Okay. Let's be respectful. Let's be respectful. Okay. Did everyone respond? The 3 people who are running respond to that? And you have 1 respond. She responded already. Okay.
All right, so your question was, why should you trust me, quote unquote, with your, or why should you trust me, right? I'm asking that you trust your vote to me because, well, it's many reasons. I would and can begin with the track record of your mayor. But I'm not the type person who is negative. However, you do know me as the type person. However, you do know me as your person to give you facts. So I don't know her personally. What I do know is that there are organizations that have reached out to me specifically to let me know that the grade that they gave her, the report card that they do for all of the public figures, her score out of 100% is 59. All right. In my class, the classes I teach, 59 is not an appropriate.
1 minute is up. 1 minute is up.
Okay.
I'm going to stand up for this. If you want the status quo, then you continue to vote for what you have. But if you're looking for something different, and when you talk about change in our African American community, then you're looking at that change. I'm asking you to trust me with your vote, because your vote depends on what we have in our future. If you wanted to continue to have no homelessness increasing, you want to continue to have the homicide rate continue to decline, you want to continue to have your leader not involved in your community, then you continue to vote for what you have. But if you really want change and you want your leader to be out in your community, you want your leader to listen to you, you want your leader to be the one to represent you and not themselves, then you continue. But if you truly want change, then I'm asking for your support. And I'm asking for your vote. And I will make your vote count. In the next election, you won't be looking to elect a new mayor.
Okay, I'm going to say this. It seems like I need to be younger, have more life experiences. I have to believe in God. And 59% of the voters that said that they would vote to re-elect me is not enough. So I can't do anything about being younger. My life experiences can match anyone, but I don't run on just being black and being a woman. I run on the love that I have for this community and the people in it. And my belief in God is deep. You don't have to shout it from the mountaintop sometimes, you just have to believe. And you have to accept that. Now the other part about the 59% of the voters that in that poll says that they would vote for me, that I'm just going to keep on working so it gets to be better and better. I want it to be 60, I want it to be 70%. And we'll just figure out how to do this. But I'm not going to step away just because I'm not young. Okay?
Okay, right.
Well, thank you, mayoral candidates. Quick question. What would you do with your bullet pulpit as the mayor of Charlotte to make sure we have an issue with police profiling here and profiling of black and brown people, and would you support some type of subpoena power for your Citizens Review Board, which oversees the police, or the Civil Service Board? How would you, as the mayor, address certain issues about police profiling and police interaction in African American and brown communities?
I support the resolution that we have, and we are lobbying for subpoena power for the Citizens Review Board. Now that's where I talk about, if you really want to impact some changes, go to work for the state legislature, because we need some elected officials up there besides the Mecklenburg delegation who fights with us all the time on that subpoena power. We're not getting it. One of my issues is to improve our relationships so that I can talk to the President of the Senate, I can talk to the Speaker of the House, and I can talk about these issues. I don't forget that part of what's important.
I support subpoena power as well. But I also support, as being the mayor of the city of Charlotte, and being the one who is over the city manager, when it comes to what the police is doing in our city, when they go to shooting and gunning down our people in the street, they should be held accountable just like each and every one of us in this room. They should not go to a court of their own peers and their peers decide, okay, they're innocent. That's that family of blue. Because I tell you, if a police officer shot down my son, I would want his peers to say, no, he's not found guilty of that. I want him to stand before the people and let the people decide that. And if he's innocent, either way, his innocence will prevail.
You do remember the police were It's okay.
You know what?
That's right. No problem.
All right, to that
Police were
question.
admitted to Capitol
Okay, go over
Police.
there. Go.
You gotta remember that. I will.
To do with the issue of racial profiling, we have to work with the police department. As I stated, I am a CMPD explorer, and so I also am an Eagle Scout. I work with the sheriff sometimes uptown to dealt with the battle of the bands and the parking and everything else. And so with that being said, we have to bring in and work with our police force and also work with my peers to build a healthier and stronger relationship, because everything does not have to be solved with going to the House or the Senate. We have to deal with some things at home, and so with that being said, we have to go down and talk with the police chief, talk with the deputy chief, and talk with my peers to build a working and healthy relationship to de-escalate the racial climate between the brown and black and the blue. Thank you.
I have consistently, since I've lived here for the last 4 years, worked directly with Kerr and Mike Sloop with the internal affairs, and I would continue to do so as it relates to their legislative authority to affect change within their department. We have an issue of culture. Kerr, I concur with Mayor Lyles, is actually doing an amazing job. However, it doesn't carry over, I would say, in a manner that demonstrates his character amongst all of his police officers. We've had many conversations about that. And it's in that vein of trying to make someone do something. So you may be a leader, you may have authoritative control over that individual, like an employee, but your employees, they still have free will. And that's where it needs to be addressed. And internal affairs can work directly with that to investigate those and then get those bad seeds out of our police department.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna let y'all talk about something different. With globalization, and it's like a growing effort around the world, what are your plans for Charlotte as a part of like the bigger globe and the growth and expansion of like internationalization?
So what are we doing about international, global relationships within our city? The city is really working hard on that in a number of ways. So let's take first, we've passed an environmental action plan. And that environmental action plan really addresses the American Climate Challenge that we have joined. We have joined the rest of the country and several countries. And as a city, we have joined that global climate challenge. And we hope to have all of our city vehicles and buildings to be environmentally sound and reducing our carbon footprint by 2030. So that's an action step that we're working on now. The other part about it is we recruit businesses to come to our city. We often are recruiting international visitors or businesses, and we are working hard on that. One of the things that I've learned in this international recruitment is that they bring a lot of people, but they care most about their children, just like most of us do. And I always get this question from the German countries, businesses. They say, well, what is your school system like, and can they be a part of it? So we are working really carefully. I have to say, the bump in the road with the change in the superintendent. We're going to have to start out again with Winston, and we will be working with Winston to talk about how we can ensure that our school system will meet the economic development recruitment that we're doing internationally, because all of our children deserve that opportunity to go wherever they want in life and be able to work and support themselves and enjoy life.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay.
Yes, so with regards to globalization, you're talking about economics, and economics specifically, and we know that that is my academia. As it relates to the environmental impact, even though it is a minor aspect that would be subsidiary or ancillary at best, it is not the direction of this question. As it relates to incentivizing organizations, larger companies coming in, of course, what I would like to do, because of course I can't make unilateral decisions nor would I like to, but I would like to liaise a discussion with those companies that are seeking to headquarter here in Charlotte to ensure that they're going to have above a living wage. And that would be a standard, and have that written into the contracts. Also, if there's going to be any grant money or any type of incentivized funding, much like what happened in Greensboro, where there would be companies that would headquarter and then they take advantage of the money and then they leave, we would write that into the clauses to ensure that they don't have that free opportunity to just take the money and run.
Dwayne.
Good morning, family. This is directed towards. Good morning. This is directed towards all four of the candidates. Somebody may have covered it by why I was on my way getting here, but the issue of affordable housing. Wanted to see exactly where you are relative to affordable housing, or mixed income housing more specifically, being a reality throughout every piece of real estate we call the city of Charlotte. As you all may very well know, mixed income housing will definitely solve a multitude of ills on several issues: education, environmental, racism, etc. Thank you.
Yes, it will. Now, this particular issue is interdisciplinary, and I think that's where my skill set lends best to the city of Charlotte and to all of us Charlotteans. Reason being is because we don't really have an issue with affordable housing. Sometimes it's just semantics, right? We have an issue with fit affordable housing, and that's different. We have plenty of unfit premises that are plenty affordable, but of course no one wants to live there. Like she mentioned with regards to like Lake Arbor, Woodland Estates. I can go down an entire list of them that are all throughout this city where they are not fit. And when I say not fit, I'm talking about housing code enforcement, which is housed in this building. Many of them having 20 plus code violations, and still yet the landlord not fixing anything at all. What we need to do is put the legislative pressure on those landlords who would seek to continue to run in commerce and profit from these tenants who are subjected to unfit premises. We also need not kind of shame.
Time.
I am for mixed income housing because, with that being said, a mixed income or a mixed community with different economic backgrounds will create a more diverse community. And with that being said, the city will be forced, because of that different economic scale, be forced to mandate certain codes to make sure the community and the residents are safer, and it benefits towards education, because now we have a mixed school system, mixed community, and that diversifies and expands the thoughts, the dreams, and the visions of the children and the families in that community.
So I concur in reference to the mixed developments. If you want to see change, you be around the change that you want to see. So if we talk about mixed developments, when we have people there of all kind of income levels, it will help the lower hanging fruit see where they want to, or what they want to achieve and where they want to arrive to. And I support that. But when we're also talking about, with taxes going up and what the mayor is doing in reference to keeping our seniors in place, we also have to look at like code enforcement. You can't bring about code enforcement changes like where you penalize from $100 now to $500 and expect that to help build your community. We have to look at all the changes, and I know I may be kind of hopping around or whatever here, but like I said, I support the mixed development because you be the change that you want to see.
So Dwayne first, I don't know how many of you know Dwayne. He actually was president of our NAACP chapter, and we're really grateful to see you today here. Thank you so much. And the Black Political Caucus, and probably walk more of these streets than we could ever imagine. So just glad to have you here. So the next thing that I wanted to say is that we put in $50 million on the bond referendum. 69% of the voters passed it. Next year we'll have another $50 million on the bond referendum, and I will be going back to the private sector to ask them to match that. So we're going to continue to build affordable housing. The thing, if you really remember, first ward apartments are the most integrated mixed income apartments that are in the city, and they date back until the 1970s. So that's the kind of model that we have in our housing framework. Every complex must be mixed income, and the reason is exactly as Ms. Puckett said. You have to have aspiration when you join a society to be the very best that you can be. And our city believes in that aspiration for everyone.
But we also cannot make the criteria to get those mixed developments.
We're not going back and forth. I want us to follow the rules up here. We're not debating, okay? I know, but we're not, we're doing rebuttals. Yes, right. We're, right. Okay, let's give a hand to all of our candidates. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm sorry that I did not get to all questions, but as you can see, it is 5 minutes to 10, and we have to be out of this building at 10 o'clock. So we appreciate them coming, and have a wonderful day. If you have announcements, please give those to Steve. Give your announcements to Steve. Wait a minute, everyone, I'm sorry, I forgot. There's one more thing that I really need you to say. Kevin, come on, I need you to please make a presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Sorry to keep you. My name is Kevin Monroe, and I'm Governor Cooper's Deputy Director for Intergovernmental Affairs based here in Charlotte. A couple of weeks ago, there was an event where the governor was invited to list people to attend, in which Ms. Sarah was being honored. We did send a letter. I've asked that the letter be sent to me so I can bring it over and present it to Ms. Sarah directly, which I'd like to read right now. Dear Mrs. Stevenson, as a treasured and precious gem of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, you are also a treasured and precious gem for North Carolina. So much of your life's work extends beyond the local boundaries and has benefited generations of your fellow North Carolinians. Your selfless and tireless advocacy for so many issues critical to Charlotte and our state is the core of who you are and how we all should be. In April of last year, when you called on those in attendance at the Tuesday morning Breakfast Club to love, respect, and pray for each other, you spoke to the essence of what needs to happen across the country. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend with you as you're honored at the North Carolina Conference on Public School Books, Testing, and Curriculum. But please know that Kirsten and I share in the gratitude for your long and committed, distinguished service to Charlotte and North Carolina. You have made our home a better place to live by showing us all how to be better people. We wish you the best always. With warm personal regards, I am very truly yours, Roy Cooper, Governor of North Carolina.